callers and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Are you a family caregiver? Are you caregiving for someone who can no longer take care of themselves? Are you overwhelmed? This is Caregiver Solutions Info with Marcia Teal. Marcia will be hosting an hour of true stories and information, tips and updates of the latest research and necessary information in the caregiving field, focusing on you, the family caregiver. An Alzheimer's disease and dementia care expert, Marcia has 15 years of hands-on experience at Arden Courts, a leader in assisted living dementia communities here in the U.S. Marcia covers everything you need to know as a family caregiver, especially if you care for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or other related dementia or chronic illness. If you have a friend or relative that is also a family caregiver, call them now. They won't want to miss a minute. And let them know they can watch on caregiversolutions.info. And they can listen on WNN 1470 AM in South Florida or nationally on the iHeartRadio app. Now, sit back, relax, and learn from our host, Marcia Teal, as she brings information to you that may just be the caregiving solution you need.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Caregiver Solutions Info. I'm so glad that you could join us today. We have a wonderful show coming up for you, as always. If you're a caregiver and you're caring for someone with memory loss, you know better than anybody else how difficult that is. And we try to give caregivers and others that are interested in learning about dementia and Alzheimer's tips and advice and information that they can use to educate themselves and to hopefully make your caregiving challenges a little bit easier. So we bring on experts in various fields of law and medicine, social work, all kinds of different experts that are going to tell you what you need to know, that maybe it's something that you never thought of before. We also bring on real caregivers that have walked in your shoes or walking in your shoes, because no better way to learn than from someone who has already been down that path. And so I hope that if you're joining us for the first time, you'll find this show very interesting and enlightening. And if you're coming back to see us week after week, I want to thank you for that. We'll be hitting our 2-year anniversary very soon, and I've heard from many people how much this program means to them because they can't get enough information about their challenges they're facing. If you're an adult child and your parents are in the stages where maybe they're showing a little bit of mild cognitive impairment or some dementia, and you want to learn how to help them and also at the same time learn how to help yourself for the future to keep yourself sharp, then again, the show is for you. So sit back and relax. We are live from Boca Raton, Florida. So I have a couple questions to pose to you regarding our subject matter today. And here we go. How many times have you lost your keys? We all do it. We put them someplace and we can't find them. And sometimes it's very frustrating because, we're in a hurry and we got to go and we can't find the keys. And I think everybody experiences this, but there's a reason why we do. Do you ever go to a cocktail party and you were introduced to some other people by friends of yours? And later, in a different social event, you saw those same people that you were introduced to for the first time at the cocktail party, and you want to go up and say hello, and you can't remember their name, and you're trying really hard because you really want to call them by name? How about problems concentrating reading a book? If you're a book reader and you like to follow novels, do you ever find yourself wandering off and not being able to concentrate and follow the storyline? We have help for you. Also, if you're on the telephone and maybe you have a problem with an appliance or your computer and you call the helpline, and they're helping you over the phone and they're telling you, okay, I want you to do this. I want you to, turn it on, hit the red button, wait 10 seconds, then hit the exit button, and then hit the Alt-Delete button, and then go to, and they give you a string of instructions. and you're like, whoa, 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 wait a minute, one thing at a time. I can't even get to number 2. You have trouble following a sequence of simple instructions, then the show is for you. Or how about you're driving down the road and you're on your way to work and you wonder, oh my gosh, did I turn off the coffee pot? Oh my gosh, did I unplug the curling iron? And how many times have you actually had to go back home because you don't want to burn something up because you're not sure if you actually did it or you didn't because you forgot? Well, if any of those situations ring true to you, then this show is definitely for you, because we're talking about your brain here. And we talk about lots of things. We talk about Alzheimer's quite a bit. We have our mascot, that's an owl, for Alzheimer's, but also because owls are wise, and we hopefully give wise advice to you. But we're talking today about the brain specifically, not about the brain that has Alzheimer's. We're going to be talking about the brain that we want to try to enrich and train and exercise our brain so that hopefully we can stave off dementia or Alzheimer's. So this is going to be great. If you're in a position where you can take notes and you have a pen and paper, you'll want to do that, because these are going to be great tips for you. Now, I have a special guest here that's going to help me to help you learn all about training our brain. And her name is Judy Herman, and she's here with me today in the studio. Hello, Judy.
Hi, Marcia. Glad to be with you
I'm
today.
so glad that you are here.
Thank you.
This is something that I love to talk about. It is your expertise, so I think we're going to have a wonderful time today talking about the brain. Mm-hmm. And you actually have a company called All Aboard the Brain Train.
Exactly.
And you are considered a memory expert and a lecturer and a brain trainer.
A brain-tertainer.
A brain-tertainer.
That's what I call myself, because I do entertain your brain. If it's not fun to do, we're not going to want to do it. So part of what I like is to find the kinds of activities that are good for you, but are fun for you as well.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because, you know, when people are training their bodies and they're doing exercises, mm-hmm. right? It's not fun, but you get great results.
Exactly.
If you go to the gym and you're doing the push-ups and you're doing the elliptical and you're doing the treadmill, and you know it's good for you, mm-hmm. you know it's good for your body, you know it's going to make you healthier, but you're sweating and, you know, it's like, oh, one more thing, and finding time to do it, and it's actually work for a lot of people, mm-hmm. but you know it's good for you. Mm-hmm. But same thing with your brain, right?
Exactly.
We need to exercise our brain, but you do it in a fun way so it doesn't feel like work. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Help everybody learn how to train their brain in a fun way. Mm-hmm. And you're going to tell us all about that. A little bit about you first.
Thank you.
I know that you have a degree in education. You went to the University of Wisconsin.
I did.
So were you actually a teacher?
I was. I taught high school English for a while, and I love language. That's part of something that I always was interested in. So what I like to do for my students is to have a lot of word games and word puzzles that activates the part of the brain that's good for vocabulary and communication. And we know that that's key to making sure that you've got the ability to communicate what's going on inside you.
And I totally agree with that. But now the question is, why did you leave teaching and have students in school? Because I think you taught high school.
I did.
Now you're teaching elderly people or anybody really that's out of school, basically, that
right.
wants to learn more.
Right.
Why did you make the switch?
Well, I work with people in senior communities primarily, and they are very interested in keeping their minds active. And I like working with people who really want to do. Sometimes a high school student is there because he has to be.
There's that work thing again with the brain.
And people who come to my classes really want to be there, and I find that stimulates me as well. And in order to help people, having that common goal is really important. So we work very well together. And people keep coming back to my classes because we build on the information that we have learned from one class to another.
So why seniors? What made you interested in helping seniors?
I've always related well to older people. I think that there is a lot that I learn from the people that I work with. I know that they benefit from my being there, but I also get a lot back from them. They have many, many things to share and contribute.
Absolutely. We always want to learn from their wisdom. Do you have or had you had in the past any, in your own family, any dementia?
My mother, who is the inspiration for my doing all these classes, we'll talk a little bit about more that later, but my mother, towards the end of her life, was a bit more confused. And when I first started working with her, it was because she couldn't come up with the word that she was trying to think. And we all have that kind of situation. And then maybe the name of the person or the restaurant. And it got very frustrating for her. And you know what happens, Marcia? The more anxious you get, the less able you are to focus on what it is that you're trying to remember.
It puts that stress factor in there.
Absolutely.
And then the brain doesn't like stress.
Not at all. So starting with that, I understood that by working with her, doing some word games and puzzles, that it really helped her. And she felt like she was doing something beneficial for herself. So I became like a cheerleader. And I like that.
Yeah.
I encourage people to do more. And you get that good feeling when you do come up with something. It feels good in your brain.
It does.
So I like to do that with my students.
Well, I think that's great that your mother was your inspiration. Not only did you have a feeling of achievement with her, and she felt good about herself, elevating her self-esteem because it promoted her word-finding abilities better. But you also got to spend quality time with her.
Definitely.
And I love that, too. So it was a win-win for everybody.
It is. Very much so.
I really, really like that. So the name of your program is called All Aboard the Brain Train, and you are the conductor.
I am. Yes.
And I really like that analogy because we're talking about training our brain. So I love the name of your program. You're the conductor, and hopefully, you don't have any cabooses because everybody's going to learn and be at the top and be in the line and be at in the engine and going full steam ahead with getting help learning how to do some of these things that we talked about, how to remember where you put your keys, how to remember people's names when you go to a party, how to remember, like you said, the restaurant that your mother likes. So we're going to come back after our first commercial break, and Judy's going to share with us how you do this and some of the fun things that she teaches others, and you don't want to miss this because it will be good for everybody. We'll be right back.
Arden Courts is not just a place to live, it's a place to call home. Residential living combined with quality caregiving. This is the philosophy behind Arden Courts. Communities created exclusively for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and related dementia who would benefit from a safe and structured environment. For additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides, call 888-478-2410 to locate a community nearest you. Inquire about our educational seminars, resource library, or support groups, or simply feel free to ask questions you may have about Alzheimer's and related dementias. At Arden Courts, we know, we understand, and we can help because memory care is all we do. Remember, call 888-478-2410 for additional information about any of the unique services Arden Courts provides. Do you need the advice?
Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related.
Solutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
Hi, and welcome back to Caregiver Solutions Info Show. I'm Marcia Teal, and my guest today is Judy Herman. Judy Herman has a program called All Aboard the Brain Train, and she's a memory expert, and she's the conductor of this brain train. And she's here today, and she's going to tell us how we can improve our brains, how we can exercise them. But first, before we get into that, Judy, why is it important to train our brains?
Well, like any muscle that you use, your brain is really important in keeping everything going. So we want to make sure that we feed it properly, we give it proper rest, and we give it the kind of exercise that will benefit. And I know that a lot of people find that doing puzzles and word games benefit them in a lot of different ways. And particularly, I think today, when people are so distracted and we have so many things going on, when you can actually focus on doing something, you are giving your brain something to do, and that's important.
Yeah, like earlier I mentioned about reading a book. Reading is a great exercise, but if you're not concentrating and your mind is wandering and you're not focused, so can training our brain help us improve our focus?
Definitely. I really think that that's the case. And because we need to eliminate so many distractions, it's important to be aware in our environment what those things are that are taking our attention away. Because by definition, if you're trying to do more than one thing, if you are multitasking,
Which a lot of people do.
a lot of people
or try
do,
to do.
and it does work. But by definition, if you're doing more than one thing, you can't give 100% of your attention to any one thing.
That's true.
So we have to discipline ourselves to do that. Sometimes it's difficult, but the result is much better when you can focus and concentrate on one thing at a time.
So by doing certain exercises with our brain, we can improve focus, improve concentration, improve our attention span,
Definitely.
improve memory.
Improve memory and improve the ability to absorb the information. As you say, if you're reading a book and you read the pages and then you put the book down and you can't remember what it was that you read, then what difference does it make? You might as well not have read it. However, when you do get that full concentration and can absorb the ideas, that's when it becomes valuable.
So it also helps us with recall.
Definitely.
And that's what memory is. It's recall. And we're putting things in our short-term memory, and which then we might want to put them in our long-term memory too.
Consolidate into the long-term memory.
Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
let's get right to it then. You have a list here. It's called the top 10 brain train tips, the top 10.
Exactly.
So let's just go through some of these and talk about each one. And, the first one, pay attention.
Pay attention.
Now,
Didn't your mom say that? Didn't your teachers say that? Pay attention.
Right. I can just see, Mrs. Smith in math class. Now, pay attention.
Pay attention to this. But actually, it's true. You really do have to make a conscious effort in the different activities that you are trying to accomplish, and avoid distractions, focus on one thing, and avoid the multitasking, which is what we were talking about before.
An example of pay attention, I think, we're going to use a little examples on some of these because I think it really helps to push the point home, what we're talking about. And instead of just paying attention, what does it mean to pay attention? You can use all your senses. It's not just
I was going to say, it's an awareness, and it's through our senses that we get information from the world.
So it's just not your eyes or your ears.
It's not your eyes and your ears only. Your sense of smell is so important. Think about it. If you were in a building and next door there were a fire, you wouldn't know it if your nose didn't tell you, or a gas leak, something like that. I use the sense of smell to communicate as well. You can get people to do things by following their nose, and I do this with my husband. Although I shouldn't
now
really
you got
say this,
now you really have my
but
curiosity.
My husband works upstairs in the house, and when I want him to come down, I'll call him and maybe call him again, and he'll be there. He'll be there. So what I do is I take out a skillet, cut up some onions and garlic, and start sautéing. And as the smell goes up, he comes down following his nose, and he says, that smells good. What's for dinner?
Oh, I really wasn't cooking dinner, honey. I just wanted
your attention.
Yeah, and too, paying attention to smell is interesting. You said that because perfume or cologne, there are
Definitely.
certain people that wear certain particular smells, colognes, and you can associate those
Definitely.
people with a smell that they have if you pay attention enough.
And you were talking before about when you're introduced to someone, pay attention to that aspect. Follow your nose and when you shake hands, what's that handshake like? Is it firm? Is it limp? Is the hand soft or calloused? These are bits of information that
Are going to help you.
And you're picking up on them.
It's almost like a puzzle, because I know you do a lot of puzzles in your brain training exercises, but meeting a person for the first time that you've never laid eyes on before, it's like a puzzle, because you need to look at all the pieces of their puzzle that they're giving you the pieces, right? Here's my face. This is a puzzle. What do my eyes look like? What does my nose look like? What is my mouth, my teeth, my hair, right? These are little pieces.
What's my voice sound like? Do I have a dialect or an accent? That's the kind of thing also that our ears are helping us with. So all of these different activities that the senses are picking up, we need to pay attention
And we're
to.
going to talk about how to actually use that a little bit later.
Okay.
But pay attention, everybody,
involve your senses.
because we're going to go to the next one. Associate.
Yes. Associations with anything that you know will help you remember new information. So we always want to try to do that. I like to say that we want to make our brains more like a superhighway, where we have a lot of pathways to the information that we are trying to remember. So if it's like I-95, there's 4 or 5 lanes. If one lane gets blocked, or 2 even,
Which happens a lot.
it happens. You can still get to your destination. It may take you a little bit longer, but you can still get there because you have more than one path. I live on A1A. It's a 2-lane road. If one of those lanes is blocked, or the bridge is up, or there's construction, I'm stuck. I don't have more than one. So the more associations you can make to a name or a fact or whatever it is that you're trying to remember, the better the likelihood is that you'll have that recall of it.
Right. So associate new information with old information that you already know. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I think number 3 we pretty much talked about.
With the
Involve all your
senses.
senses. So we talked about all of our senses. So let's go on down to number 4.
Number 4.
Now this one,
I love this one, too.
This one, you wrote talk to yourself. Now, before we explain it, a lot of people, say, "Uh-oh, she's talking to herself," right? But what do you mean by that?
When you say aloud what it is that you are thinking or reminding yourself of, you're adding another dimension. You're hearing it as you're saying it. So, for example, has this ever happened when you've gotten up from one room and you walk into the next room and then you stand there and you wonder, what did I come in here after?
Sure, I think everybody
The belief
experiences.
in the hereafter, I call that moment. What you can do to prevent that is, before you get up, say aloud, I'm going into the kitchen to check the timer, get a drink of water, make a phone call, whatever it is that you're doing.
Even if you're by yourself.
Especially if you're by yourself. Say it aloud, and then when you get there, in your mind's ear, you will hear why you are there.
Wow.
It's called memory for intention. So you
Okay.
do it before the fact.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm going to go get the car keys now in
Right.
the bedroom, and you get in there and it just recalls what you just said, and there you go.
And it alerts
That's a simple,
you.
but that's so simple.
It's easy. It's easy. It's the turning off the coffee pot. I had that nightmare also one time when I was out and I couldn't remember and I had to go back and I thought, oh my goodness, this is crazy, but I have to go back to do that.
And so if you say it to yourself, I'm unplugging the coffee pot, or I'm turning off the
I'm
curling
locking
iron.
the door. Here's the best one. I'm closing the garage door. I have a fellow in one of the country clubs, because I do presentations to clubs and organizations as well. And he says, every time I close my garage door, I thank you, because then I can go out knowing that that is closed and done.
And I think the reason that we think we forget is because we do these things so automatically.
Exactly.
It's the muscle memory. It's just we do it without thinking because we can, and that's what we do. We've done it. It's the muscle memory. We do these things, and then we second guess ourselves. And we don't recall because we aren't paying attention.
There you go,
when
back to number one.
Number one. So it's all related. Everything in its place, number 5.
Everything in its place. You talked about the keys earlier, If you have a particular spot that you put your keys every time you come in, mine happens to be a drawer. It could be a hook. It could be a shelf. It could be a plate. When I was growing up, we had a reminder table right by the front door where everybody's keys or library books or notes for the teacher or letters to be mailed, everything went onto the reminder table. But having a designated place means that when you need that item, you know exactly where to go and where it should be.
So it helps to be organized.
A bit, and make it a habit. Repeating it a few times is good. Repeating it, I think they say it takes 30 times to make a habit.
Something like that, 21 or 30
times.
times.
But once you do it a number of times, then you will know the next time where it is.
Okay,
Exactly.
number 6, take a mental minute. What does that mean?
Take a mental minute throughout the day. Just give your brain a little something to do. Count backwards from 100 by sevens, or think of all the countries that you can that begin with the letter C. Any little activity that you can give your brain is going to be some exercise that it wouldn't have otherwise. So I like saying, keep a deck of cards out on your table. Play a game of solitaire. Play one of the best games, actually, from memory, is that game Concentration.
We used to play it as a
Remember
kid.
that as a kid? And we did play games with kids. Why? Because we wanted them to grow mentally. So why should we stop playing games
Go
now?
fish, concentration.
Concentration.
Even war, which is very simple, which you can actually still play that game with a lot of people that have dementia, because if they're still not too advanced, they understand which number is bigger, or which one has more little icons on it, it's the clubs or the hearts or whatever. So there are exercises for your brain for all levels, is what I hear you're saying. It doesn't have to be something very intellectually challenging. It can be something simple, too.
Very simple.
That's good.
And I was going to say, with that game Concentration, you don't have to use the whole deck. You can use just half, one red suit, one black suit, and then try matching up. So simplify where necessary. It goes quicker, and it also is more adaptable.
And then
for
as you
all
get better,
levels.
you can increase the challenge.
And you will see, this is something that I find so much with the classes. I do, in each of my classes, I do what's called a word wheel. And it's a circular arrangement of 8 letters with 1 letter in the center, and we make as many words as we can from it. And that kind of activity is great. All you need is a pencil and a paper. You write out a word that you've seen maybe on a billboard or a headline. Write it out. Make as many words as you can from it. It's brilliant.
It's interesting that you said that, because at Art and Courts, we do activities for all of our residents who are suffering from some type of dementia. And do you know one of their favorite activities is the activity director will take one big long word. It's a long word.
Yes.
I mean, even if it's not super long, but even implementation, for example. And we tell them what other words can you make? And they'll shout it out and we write them. And do you know, they can come up with 50, 60, 70, 80 little
Yes.
words out of that one word as a group. And
Yes.
they love that game because it's tapping into their long-term memory. You know, they can still do that, and it makes them feel so good,
Right.
and it empowers them and elevates their self-esteem and makes them happy because it's fail-free environment. And it's such a great exercise, pulling out that long-term memory that they still can do these types of things, and they're still
Exactly.
able to exercise their brain. So I
Yes.
love that. Well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Judy's going to share the rest of the 10 top tips for training your brain. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Feelings of depression, isolation, and frustration are common among persons living with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's common among those who care for them, too. It takes a lot of patience and courage. It also takes knowing when you can no longer do it alone. At Arden Courts, memory care is all we do. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Don't let guilt keep you from making the right decision. Visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Somewhere at the corner of bewildered and confused is a lost mother, a father, a sibling, a grandparent. Wandering is a common symptom of Alzheimer's or related dementias and can often make those who care for a loved one feel just as lost. If you're looking for a place that's safe and secure, look to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know, we understand, we can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Expert on caregiversolutions.info. If you have a question or wish to share a story, call into the show at 888-565-1470 and talk with Marcia. Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And welcome back. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our national sponsor, Arden Courts Memory Care Communities. Arden Courts has over 50 communities throughout the United States, and they are wonderful when it comes to taking care of people with memory loss, because memory loss is all they do. But they're also wonderful to take care of the caregiver, which is you, because without good care for the caregiver, we need to have you to be good, to be advocates, and to be there for your loved one. So because of that, Arden Courts offers many educational seminars and a lot of resources. And today, they'd like to offer you this book. It's called the 36-Hour Day Book. This is a wonderful resource for caregivers. It talks about definitions of different kinds of dementia. It talks about tips on how to deal with behavioral issues. This was actually written by Dr. Peter Rabins and Nancy Mace. It's in the 5th edition right now, so you can tell that it's been around a very long time, and it's a wonderful resource. If you'd like to have this book for yourself, all you have to do is call Arden Courts on their toll-free number, which is 888-478-2410. Tell them that you heard about this on the Caregiver Solutions Info program, and they'll be happy to get your name and address and mail a copy free of charge out to your home. So again, call Arden Courts at 888-478-2410 and get your copy of the 36-Hour Day Book. So I'm here with my guest today. She is the conductor of a program called All Aboard the Brain Train. Her name is Judy Herman, and we've been talking about how to exercise your brain and giving some great tips on that. So Judy, on your top 10 brain tips, we're up to number 7.
Okay.
And number 7 says, use external aids to assist recall. Can you explain that?
Yes, because there are a lot of things that are available to us now to help us with our memory. We don't have to remember everything. We can Google. We can put things on a calendar. We can use an address book. We can have a contact list.
Post-it notes.
Post-it. Well, writing it down, that's another thing. That's, I think, number 8 is to
okay.
write it down. But Post-it notes are brilliant, yes. I like to say the faintest ink is worth more than the best memory sometimes, because once you've got it written down on that Post-it note, as long as you don't lose the note, you're in business. However, writing it down, even if you do forget that list when you get to the grocery store, in your mind's eye, very often you can recreate the list. You can remember the
It's
association.
almost like you can see it if you have, people call that, photographic memory or something?
Yeah.
But you can almost
You can
see,
visualize
what you wrote
the
sometimes.
word or where it was. And so, even if you don't have it physically with you, you can kind of recreate it mentally.
Great.
So that's important. But one of the things that I like, leave yourself a message on your voicemail. If you're out and you need to remember something, use your little phone or whatever thing you've got
Remind me to call
yourself.
Mom on her birthday.
Yes, precisely right. So that frees your mind to do more creative thinking. And, it sounds a little unusual, but part of remembering is also forgetting. There are things that we don't need to remember, and our brain does filter those things out. So we are able to concentrate on the things that are really important.
Yeah, I can imagine how big our brains must really be if we had to remember everything we ever learned.
Exactly.
Okay, now number 9, repeat it.
Repeat it.
Repeat,
yes.
repeat.
Yeah, particularly in meeting a new person and they introduce themselves to you and you say, hello, Marcia, nice to meet you. During the conversation, use the person's name a few times. Don't abuse it. Not too many times, but a few times during the conversation, say the name aloud again. And that will, again, trigger that internal ear that you've got. And at the end of the conversation, make sure you end with the person's name. It was so nice to meet you, Marcia. I'll see you again soon, I hope.
Yes, and it was interesting because I just came off of a cruise, met
nice.
a lot of new people.
Lovely.
And so you're introducing, you have table mates at dinner and you're talking to everyone. And people want to remember your name. So I think it's helpful if you give them a little tip or hint on how to remember your name so that maybe they don't have the knowledge or the tips how to do it if you help them to do it. For instance, we had a group of people at our table and we were leaving and they said, nice to meet you. And they said, Marcia, right? Because they wanted to get it right. And I said, yes. I said, just remember Marcia from the Brady Bunch, because I have blonde hair and she had blonde hair. And just that little thing, Marcia. It's not only is it repeating it 3 times, but it's a phrase from back in I think it was the 70s where people knew about the Brady Bunch. And when I say that to them, they go, oh, and they actually, it helps them to remember.
Right.
So,
and I can't tell you how many people say to me when I introduce myself, they say, Judy. And that's dating it also, but it is another way.
Right.
Or Judy Garland, Judy Dench, Judy Holliday. There are other people that you know who have the same name. Associate that. Sometimes rhyming. I mean, Judy, cutie, tutti frutti, whatever it is, you can add that to your list of
which
things.
goes back to the not only the association but the imagery that you were talking about. So let's say that you did meet somebody and you had on a wild and crazy colorful dress, because you just said tutti frutti, right?
Yes.
Which reminded me of some crazy wild colorful dress.
Right.
And you said, hi, I'm Judy, like tutti frutti, and kind of pointed to your dress. Then that person can associate all those bright colors. And if they see it, because everybody kind of knows the term tutti frutti, right? Then when they see that dress, hopefully they'll relate that to Judy.
Right.
And then there's that connection
So the
there.
sound again.
Yeah.
Right.
And
that I just wanted to give another tip that's not on here, but I think a lot of people do this when you're trying to search in your brain for the name of the person. Very often people go through the alphabet.
Yes, I do
to
that.
do that. Do you?
I do.
Okay. So the idea there is that you're hearing the sound of the syllable of the name. This happened to me. It was quite funny. I was trying to remember my friend's older sister's name. My friend's name was Sharon, and I knew that her sister had that sh kind of sound in her name, but it wasn't Susan or Shirley or Sandy. Couldn't think of it. I went to bed, and very often a good tip is if you're trying to remember something, think about it before you go to sleep, and then don't think about it again, because overnight your brain will continue to work on that problem. You don't have to tell it anymore. It knows. And maybe the next morning when you're brushing your teeth, all of a sudden, there's the name.
Boom.
And guess what? It came to me. The name was Phyllis.
Well, she had that.
So it had the
but it was at the end.
But it was at the end.
That's funny.
So,
but
yeah.
it does
but
does
that
work.
does work. And a lot of people find that that is a great method. They're going to remember something.
Yeah, and picking up on someone's face. We'll talk a little bit about facial recognition. You said associate with your clothes. We talked about the tutti frutti, but someone's face. So if you're looking at somebody and you want to remember, you have to pay attention, like you said, and pick up on some certain facial expressions or some features that they might have, and you can try to remember. So, for instance, there was a lady on the cruise ship, and she had super red hair, and it was very thick and really wavy, and she kind of had it in braids to kind of keep it under control, all right? Well, I wanted to remember her, so I'm like, and her name, I can tell you right now what her last name was, because her last name was Weaver. And I thought weaving her pigtails, she was weaving them together to keep them, right? And I thought, well, that was, Weaver. See, I remember her last name. Yeah. And then for her first name was Stacy, I believe. Yes, Stacy. And I'm like, how am I going to remember Stacy? Well, she had lines on her face, certain lines, and it almost looked like you could trace the lines on her face. So I thought about tracing lines. Tracing lines made me think Stacy, and then her hair, and so her name is Stacy Weaver. I'll probably never see this person again in my entire life. I met her on the cruise, but I remember her name because of how the picture in my mind, and it's really funny.
Yes, visualization is so important.
Yeah, that
really
and we can go through that all day long, because there's so many ways, opportunities, in other words, pieces of the puzzle that we're giving other people, presenting ourselves to them. They just have to pick a few of them and they can solve that puzzle.
Yes.
Yeah. And your last one is called relax.
Relax. Yes. Sometimes you just can't come up with the word or the concept that you're thinking. The more anxious you get, the more nervous, the more negative you get, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to remember what
That's
it
like
is. So
it's
relax.
on the tip of my tongue.
Yes.
I know it's there. I know it's there. I
Yes.
just can't think of it. And you really want to, because you're in a situation maybe of people watching you. And that does kind of make you feel a little bit intimidated. And because it's on the tip of your tongue. And that's when you probably can't remember it because you're not relaxed.
No, exactly right.
I like
Exactly
this.
right. But you can compensate. And that's something that I think is important also, that if you can't think of the specific word, you may think of a synonym, or you may be able to describe what it is. That's the cognitive reserve that we try to keep building. It's like money in your mental bank. You can draw on that if you can't exactly get.
And perfect example, before we go to break, is an Alzheimer's patient that I know was trying to ask for a pencil, but he couldn't get that word pencil. It just eluded his brain. But he said, I need the thing that you write with.
There you
so
go.
you knew at least it was a pen or a pencil, or it could have been a crayon, but it was something to write with.
Right.
So he substituted the use of that instrument for the word, and therefore communicated what he needed and got what he was looking for.
Exactly.
That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with Judy with a lot more tips. So stay tuned.
Do you need the advice of an elder law attorney? Perhaps you find it difficult or overwhelming getting to appointments.
The inability to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's, particularly among the family members who care for them. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to us. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Wandering is a common problem for people with Alzheimer's or related dementias. It's also a problem for family members who care for them. Keeping them safe and secure means never letting your guard down. And even though deep down you know it's time, it hurts to have to ask for help. But it could hurt them even more if you didn't. We know. We understand. We can help. Arden Courts. Being unable to recognize the obvious often occurs with Alzheimer's or related dementias, even among their caregivers. When the time comes for you to decide that someone you love needs more help than you can give, will you be able to recognize it? Don't wait for a crisis to make the decision for you. Talk to Arden Courts. Memory care is all we do. We know. We understand. We can help. To learn more, visit arden-courts.com. Arden Courts follows equal housing opportunity guidelines.
Now, back to Caregiver Solutions.
And we're back, and my guest is Judy Harmon, all aboard the brain train, and she's conducting us today on how to exercise our brain. We just finished talking about the top 10 brain tips, and that was fun. And like you said, it does make learning better when it's fun. And the things we talked about and how you do it is fun. What I love, too, about, again, what you did with your mom back when she was having some memory problems. You spent time with her, and you did some of these special exercises together. And I want to share some exercises with our audience that they can do with their loved one. Perhaps they're a caregiver, and they're taking care of a mother, a father, a spouse, a grandfather. And they want to spend some quality time, but they want to also give a little bit of that special memory boost to them to help train their brain, to exercise it, to keep them at their mental best as they can do it. So I know you have some fun things. You call it Take a Mental Minute exercises.
Right.
And describe a few of these and how a caregiver could do it with their loved one.
Right. Okay. So some simple games that you can play together, and I like that idea. Categories. If you've ever tried doing that, where you think of a category, it could be history or movies or cartoon characters. Doesn't matter what the category is. And then you think of a letter, and you try to find as many examples as you can. So say we're talking about women's names.
Okay.
How many women's names can you think of that begin with the letter? I'll give you M for Marcia. Okay? So together you could work on as many names as you can think of.
And that's fairly simple, but
very simple.
But you do have to think about it.
It is. It's creative thinking because you do have to extend beyond the first two, and that feeling of actually coming up with something is the type of thing that makes you want to do more. That positive feedback that your brain gives you.
Yes.
It feels good.
It does. And as the list gets longer, it gets more exciting because it's like, okay, we already said, we have 10 names and, but let's keep doing more.
Yeah.
And it gets kind of like exciting and a little bit of a challenge.
Yes.
It's fun.
That's great.
Yeah. What else?
Puzzles. Jigsaw puzzles, particularly, are very good for spatial ability, and you can work together. Many of the communities that I'm in have an ongoing puzzle out, and you can just stop by and put a few pieces in. I would suggest not starting with a 5,000-piece puzzle of the Milky Way. Maybe you want to do a 50 or 100-piece puzzle with a cow and a bottle of milk, but it is fun to do, and again, games are not just for kids. We give them to kids because we want the brains to grow and develop, and that's exactly what happens when you do it at any age.
And that's why they call them games, because they're fun.
Exactly. So word games, Scrabble, Boggle, puzzles, crossword puzzles, if you can do it. And these things come in all different levels, all different abilities. So try to find ones that you can do easily to start. But the way the brain grows and the way the exercise really works is when you give it a little bit more of a challenge. That's what causes it. So up the degree of difficulty. That's not so hard to do. Take away some time. So if you usually do the jumble, say, in 10 minutes, see if you can do it in 7.
There you go. Challenge yourself.
Does challenge you. It's the same way that, adding reps or adding weight to your bicep curls is going to help.
Well, on this list, I have to bring this one up because it says watch quiz shows on TV. Now, I love this one because I love to watch Jeopardy. My mother loved to watch Wheel of Fortune. That was her favorite. But I love Jeopardy. And I know something about you. That you were actually a winner, a contestant on Jeopardy, and you were a champion.
I was.
That's awesome.
Champion. Yeah.
And
that was great fun.
That was fun, but I'm sure that it sort of helped you with all of this. They say all of our experiences help us to where we are today.
Right. The thing with Jeopardy is it's not really so much that you have the knowledge. It's whether you can retrieve that knowledge quickly enough so that you're buzzing in before the others. I don't know if you've watched when you see some contestants and they're pressing as if the buzzer doesn't work. It does, but somebody has locked them out because they got there quicker. So it's the recall of the information. Now, one of the things that I find is that I can beat some of the contestants on the program because my range of experience is a little different from a 20-year-old. So some of the things that were ancient history might not be such ancient history to
some
me.
other people, right?
And it's quite fun. And I know most of my residents in the communities do enjoy watching the programs.
Well,
you learn.
You learn. And if you don't know the answer, like you say, you're learning something new. So you're training your brain by learning. And my favorite show of all time, because I would have been yours, but I didn't know you were on, so I'm sorry. But my favorite show of all time was the one where they asked the 3 contestants the question, and nobody got it right but me. And that was my favorite show because I beat them all. And
very good. That happened to me just the other night. So that feels good, doesn't it?
It really does. So all of these things are great. Do them together. And one more before
do the family albums and
one.
Photos. Did that? I mean, we all have a shoebox or a plastic bag. Go through them. They trigger many, many memories of different times and people. And here's the thing. When you do get those names and places and occasions, write it down on the back of the picture because then anybody who is going to be looking at it
generations to come
will know who and where and when.
Absolutely.
And why.
It's a great way to spend time with a loved one that has dementia because you're going again back to their long-term memory. And you might not know the people in that picture, but they do because they can go back there and remember that. So that's a good tip.
Exactly.
Before we have to end our wonderful time here together today, I want to talk real quick about this, I guess you call it a workbook. That you have available to people. And we only have a couple minutes, but this workbook has all kinds of puzzles and games and just amazing challenges. So if someone wanted to have this because they wanted to exercise their brain and train their brain, how could they do that?
They are available. You can get in touch with me. I have a website. It's www.braintertainer.com. I am the Brain Tertainer. And we can get it from the website, or I can somehow make a connection. If you want to give me a phone call, I can make a connection and we can get these to you.
Great. What's your phone number? How can they contact you?
561-542-7830. And I would be happy to have a chat and if you're interested in that. Also, I'm preparing an annual manual, which is good for people who are in care and giving care, because it is something for each month of the year, and puzzles or games and tips, but it stimulates the memory of those times and seasons and holidays. So it's a very good kind of thing that can be done as mental
That's
minutes.
perfect. That association thing again, you're associating holidays with objects and activities and things like that.
Exactly.
So that's another opportunity for someone to get that from you for a price, a purchase.
Right.
You can purchase. So the
Purchase,
workbook is
the
for
workbook.
purchase.
Mhm.
Okay, so don't forget. Thank you again for coming today and training our brain.
This has zoomed by, I have to say.
It's been wonderful.
It's been fun.
So if you want to reach out to Judy Herman, call her at 561-542-7830. Find out how you can get the information to train your own brain. In the meantime, don't forget, same time, same place next week, and give somebody a hug because they need it and so do you. So we'll see you next time on the Caregiver Solutions Info program, and train your brain in the meantime. And don't forget, make it fun. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Caregiver Solutions with Marcia Teal. Join us next week as Marcia, who has 15 years of Alzheimer's disease and dementia care experience, brings you more needed information to help with the care of your loved one. This show can be seen again on caregiversolutions.info, and questions can be left on the site, which may be used on the program to help others. See you next week for more Caregiver